Hello everyone. Before I continue with A Look in the Dark chapter 12, Checkout part 2, just like to mention where we were today. We live up here. Hope you can see that okay. We're right at the top of this map and there's Loch Foyle. And I was reading just today that is disputed territory for close to 90 years. That's been disputed territory, that water, between Britain and Ireland, and it kind of sums Irish politics up. Both the UK and Ireland claim that as their water completely. They cooperate over many things, and yet there are still major arguments. What a world we live in. So here it is then. Danny and Carol are being held captive by the Republicans, who are suspicious about what they're doing, wandering around the border with binoculars. Danny has tried to make a defence of what they were doing. He's about to get an Irish history lesson. Daniel was grateful for the Irish history lesson, laden heavily with the Republican viewpoint. It was better than contemplating their fate. He got it all from the 1790s and Theobald Wolfe Tone, the hanging of Henry Joe McCracken in 1798, United Irishmen and the battle for Catholic rights, Robert Emmet and his attack on Dublin Castle in 1803 with just 80 men armed at Emmet's expense. He listened to the words of a song about famine and transportation and heard tales about the Young Irelanders, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, the Easter Rising, and right through to modern day Irish republicanism. And then the continued armed struggle for freedom. Liam emphasised that a number of those early heroes were actually Protestants, but he didn't want to debate the role of Michael Collins as friend or foe. When Liam talked about the Great Famine of 1845-49, you would have thought he'd witnessed it personally. I have read a bit about it, Liam. It was an awful injustice, but you know, British peasants got a rough time from the ruling classes too. They were not just left to starve. Liam had raised his voice. That's true, generally speaking. You know, Liam, I'm impressed with your knowledge of history, and I can see that you're in this because your heart is truly Republican Irish. My wife and I, we're not here to fight against that, but I can explain to you why you should be concerned about the illegal wildlife trade. Aye, if you must. William, it's like this. The man who kicks his dog today may kick his child tomorrow. And the man who sells your country's birds off today may well sell his people off tomorrow. If the price is right, I mean. Ireland has some unique and unspoilt places, and that gives it a very special ecosystem. Why should any so-called Irishman be allowed to strip away some of the land's rare creatures and sell them to a wealthy Englishman as if he owned the very systems of life that are there to make Ireland so beautiful? Aye, well, when we be united Ireland we can deal with that. Right now we have to get you lot out of here. I don't know enough to comment about that. Well, you're a rare Englishman then? Most of them seem to think they know more about Ireland than I do. Well, if I'm rare, I hope you guys are going to spare an endangered species. Liam was not sure how to react until he saw Danny Green's smile. Both men laughed and Danny felt a bit better. He didn't know how his story could be checked, but Carol understood all this better than him. Danny refused Liam's offer of a cigarette, saying they're bad for your health, and Liam thought that was another joke. Across the hallway in the house's main living room, Carol sipped the rest of her tea, putting a cup on the floor. She smiled at her masked examiner. Would you like to hear my own story now I've told you about our work here? He nodded. I'm a Tyrone girl. You maybe got the accent. I'm from just outside Dungannon, between the bypass and Eglish. This is a bit embarrassing. My father, who is a farmer, is also an Orangeman. I can see how you'd be embarrassed about that now. I may as well tell you as well that I have a brother in the RUC in Belfast, the police reserve he's in. Ah, you're well connected, Carol. 2 battlements of British rule in Ireland. Well, they don't do my thinking for me. I form my own opinions, and I've always had friends on both sides of the community. That's not easy these days. True, but it's not impossible. I never did agree with violence on either side. Sorry, but you want me to be honest? I also have an uncle who I think is in the UVF, and he knows my views on that, so I might as well tell him to you. So you're some sort of hippie pacifist then? Not exactly. If you hit Danny, I'd kick you so hard and it would hurt. I don't like war and violence because they never solve any problems here or anywhere else. The armed struggle is a means to an end. One day there'll have to be talk. I'd like to see the guns out of Irish politics, but it can't be yet. Our ideologies differ, but I'm not your enemy. You would like to check us out, I think I know a way. I'm easier to check out than Danny Green. But I'll give you two names, one here and one in Frome, Somerset. Okay, so who is the one here? I think he's one of yours, I'm not certain. He certainly sympathises, he's an old friend. I lived in Belfast, I don't know where he is now, but I think his parents still live in Lenadoon in the city. Name? Mickey O'Hare. There may be a few in Belfast, but this Mickey used to work at... I know him. Pat hadn't said a word in town now. Did he work on the ferries for a while? Aye, he did. What's his ma's name? Geraldine, and the father is Peter, and he's a brother called Joe, I think. I know him. Mickey's on remand in McGilligan prison at the moment. Carol, thank God that Northern Ireland was such a small country and that so often you meet people who know someone you know when you talk about them, even in faraway places. Also, being in prison with other Republican prisoners should make it easy for him to check out the story. So how do you know this Mickey O'Hare, Pat? The interrogator was curious. I won't say much in present company, but you remember where I was this time last year? Aye, well, Mick was there too. He's as sound as they come. So who's this person we can check with in Somerset? The chief was wanting to complete things quickly. I'm sure you want to get this over with. Aye, we do. There's a window cleaner in Somerset called Don Blake. His wife is Irish. We've spent time with him in the past. He's an old mate of Danny. She's quite open about her sympathies for you guys. She would at least vouch for who we are. She might even give us a character reference. Oh, aye. Are you applying for a job with us now? No, thanks. If you go to our accommodation, you'll find in a room a file sitting in the top drawer by the bed. It contains a synopsis of what we hope to achieve in Ireland. Look, I know we're not in a position to ask the IRA for favours, but you as commander of an active service unit appreciate the value of confidentiality. And I was wondering if it's possible not to let the folk know what we're up to as you check us out, I mean. The man drummed his fingers on the table for a couple of minutes. I don't know what to think about the two of yous at all, so I don't. He picked up his gun and placed it on the table in front of him. Okay, your story sounds fairly convincing, but we're not taking any chances. He looked back over the notes he'd written in just a few details. Carol hadn't even noticed he'd written anything. Then he shouted, "Hey Pat, Liam, get Danny Green in here." Danny was not hustled into the room, just ordered to walk. He sat down by Carol and they exchanged a smile, both unsure and wondering if they only had a little time left. Carol reached for Danny's hand and nobody stopped her. "Right lads, take this notebook. Check the details I've written down. Go to the guest house. There's the name." He pointed it out to Pat. "I know it. I know them." "In the room where the Greens stay, there's a file on the top drawer by the bed. Bring it back when you've checked everything else out, okay? Any questions?" "How long have we got?" Liam's youthful voice was a little anxious with inexperience. "As long as it takes and no longer." The commander then looked at the Greens. "If their story checks out, then we'll help them on their way. But if there's any doubt, they'll die right here. You two go on ahead and I'll keep our guests entertained. Better tie them to the chairs, Liam, just to be on the safe side." As the two RA volunteers drove away, Danny looked into those brown eyes and the masked face. "So how do you check us out?" "Now Danny Green, why would I be telling you that? What I give them in the notebook is enough. Oh, and just in case you get any ideas about escaping in the meantime, in the unlikely event that you get out of here alive, there are two men outside in the barn, both well armed, and they know this area. You don't even know which side of the border you're on." "Well, we know that, and it would be really stupid." Carol tried to sound calm. "It was really being stupid to be here in the first place." Neither of the captives were fit to argue with that. "Well, I hope you don't mind now, but I'm really fed up with wearing this balaclava." The dedicated Irish fighter held onto his gun and pulled the balaclava off the top of his head. Now the brown eyes looked kinder despite the tightly cropped hair and beard. "Now that's more comfortable. Don't look so surprised. If you're telling the truth, I can't see you running off to tell the police that some naughty Republicans held you up on the border for a few hours. And if you're not telling the truth, by the time the police see you, well, they'll know we held you, but they won't be able to tell you much. You won't be able to tell them much." Despite his dangerous situation, Danny was amazed at the coolness of this man. "Nice to see your face," he said, because He didn't know what else to say. Carol smiled. She loved solving puzzles. Oh, I know you now, Sean. Danny wished she hadn't said that. Do you indeed, and just how do you know me? A friend of mine lent me a book. It's called They Just Won't Lie Down. I think the writer was James O'Malley. Your photos in that book and a whole lot of the stuff about your tactics along the border are in the book as well. Indeed, all along the border. Now, what was a pretty orange girl doing read a hardcore Republican book by my friend O'Malley? Oh no, Sean. I'm not orange or green. I'm a free bird, and so is Danny here. I'll read anything I want to. So how do you feel about the Republican movement? Is right not on the side of the poor downtrodden Catholics? It's very hard to say what you feel with a man with very strong opinions pointing a gun at you. Carol laughed as she said it. Sean grinned. He had very white teeth. I'm not going to shoot you because you don't agree with me. This isn't the French Revolution. If we started that crack, everyone in Ireland would be dying dead with a smoking gun in his hand, all except the last man to state his feelings. So, Carol and Danny, tell me, don't you think we have a just cause? So, their story can be checked, they hope. The Republican wants to